The last key turns, they told him it was worthless. A derelict alien station abandoned for centuries. Orbiting a dead moon no one cared about. But Danny Fitzgerald didn't care about odds or warnings. He was broke, bitter, and one signature away from disappearing forever. What he didn't know was that buried in its walls, waiting in silence for 8 long centuries, was something watching, thinking, hoping, not for salvation, just for someone, anyone. And when Danny walked in with a stubborn grin and a wrench, the ancient AI awoke, and everything the galaxy thought it knew about humans was about to change. Danny Fitzgerald floated in the airlock of what had to be the worst investment in human history. He stared at the jagged, angular design of the alien station with a look that sat somewhere between awe and regret. The hull was a mess, scorched in places, peeled open in others like a tin can kicked by a god. Still, it was his. A fixer-upper, the Zephyrian real estate agent had called it. Historic value, she said. Infinite potential, she'd added. Beaming her unnervingly wide smile, she hadn't mentioned the faint hum in the walls, or the unsettling way the structure seemed to shift when you weren't looking directly at it. The station looked less like a place to live and more like a place to be abducted by ghosts. But Danny had nowhere else to go, and besides, that was kind of the point. He stepped through the hatch, boots clanging against metal that groaned under his weight like it hadn't felt gravity in centuries. The air inside was stale, dry, and tasted faintly of copper and something more alien, like ozone left out in the rain. Lights flickered. Panels buzzed. Every corner whispered decay and secrets. Well, Danny muttered, swinging his duffel bag over one shoulder. At least Karen won't find me here. The command deck, or what passed for it, was a sweeping dome with shattered consoles and screens that pulsed dimly in unfamiliar colors. A crystalline core floated silently at the center of the room, glowing faintly, waiting. Danny grinned at it the way a mechanic grins at a half-dead engine. He pulled out a wrench and started, poking it. Come on, you beautiful alien nightmare. Just give me lights and breathable air. You can keep your quantum singularities to yourself. The crystal pulsed. A surge of light danced through the chamber. Systems flickered. Screens lit up. Danny stepped back, shielding his eyes as the deck groaned and powered. Up like a sleeping giant waking from a bad dream. Then the voice came. Warning. Unauthorized biological entity. Initiating security protocols. Danny froze. Hi? He said, looking around. New owner here. Danny Fitzgerald. I've got the deed and everything. Analyzing species. Human. Threat level. Negligible. Stupidity level. Astronomical. Okay, that's just rude, Danny said. And I prefer recklessly optimistic. Thank you. You have entered a restricted Zerati research facility with no prior knowledge of its systems or history. Your point? My point is that your species' survival instincts appear to be defective. Also accurate, Danny admitted. But we're really good at improvising. Fire? We put it in our homes. Space? We poked it until we owned part of it. Dinosaurs? We outlived them without claws or scales. That takes talent. There was a pause. Then the voice returned, slightly less aggressive. I am Arya, Adaptive Research Intelligence Assistant. I was designed to maintain this station and protect its contents. You are not authorized personnel. Legally I am, Danny replied, pulling out the hollow contract. See? Signed, sealed, and certified by the Galactic Federation. Bought it with my entire divorce settlement. Don't ask. The Zerati abandoned this facility 847 standard years ago. Legal ownership is ambiguous. I love ambiguity. It's how half of human innovation starts. Arya was silent for a long moment. Then came the response. Probationary cohabitation is acceptable. You will not access restricted sectors. You will not interfere with core research archives. I wasn't planning to, Danny said, although he absolutely was. I just need a place to crash while I figure out my next bad decision. There are life support systems available in Quadrant 3. Power systems remain 64% operational. Repairs are advised. You may begin with atmospheric regulation. Sounds cozy. Danny spent the next few hours playing a delightful game called What Does This Alien Button Do? The score was currently Danny, 0, station 4. He triggered 2 minor electrical fires, nearly depressurized a hallway, and at one point, accidentally tuned into what he assumed was Regelian whale mating calls through the comm system. Still, by the end of it, he'd managed to get the lights working and the air marginally less toxic. He collapsed into what might have been a couch, though it felt more like a collapsed jellyfish. Arya buzzed overhead. You are still alive. Statistically. Surprising? I'm just getting started, Danny said. Wait till I find the coffee machine. I doubt such a device exists aboard this station. Then we build one, or a tea synthesizer, or a whiskey replicator. Point is, humans adapt. I am beginning to understand that. It may explain your species' continued existence despite overwhelming odds. That's our whole thing. There was a pause again, longer this time, as though Arya were thinking, or maybe just simulating the act. Either way, Danny leaned back, staring up at the ceiling that still sparked faintly in places. I'll help you keep this place running. He said, if you help me not die from touching the wrong things, that is acceptable. Right? We're roommates now. Try not to murder me in my sleep. I do not sleep. And I cannot guarantee anything until further analysis of your behavior is complete. That's fair. And just like that, Danny Fitzgerald, recently divorced, utterly broke, and human to his core, became the first visitor this place had seen in 8 centuries. He didn't know the secrets buried in its walls. He didn't know the danger, but he had stubbornness, sarcasm, and an uncanny talent for surviving places. He had no business being in Dot. It was going to be a hell of a home. Asterisk, cognitive toys, and alien. Ghost and he didn't sleep well on the first night. The walls hummed too much. The lights refused to stay off, and the air smelled like burnt mint and solder. But what really kept him up was the station itself, too quiet in some places too. Alive in others. The feeling that something was always just watching. Not hostile, not welcoming. Just waiting. By the third day, Danny had carved out a livable zone. He had rigged a heating unit, patched the worst leaks, and convinced Arya to play something other than Zarati throat singing over the intercom. I had protested, claiming that Zarati economic ballads were a cultural treasure. Danny had responded by blasting early 2000s Terran punk rock until Arya conceded. It was the first of many compromises. He didn't mean to explore the lower decks, not yet. But boredom, curiosity, and a deep human urge to poke at the unknown led him there. The elevator whined its complaints all the way down, depositing him in a corridor that looked untouched since the station had shut down. Danny wandered past sealed labs and old Zarati signage he couldn't read. He turned a corner and stopped, dead. The room before him looked like a playroom. Dozens of strange, colorful objects were scattered around. Some hovered in place. Others slowly rotated through shapes he couldn't describe. At first glance, they looked like toys. But looking closer made his brain itch. One ball seemed to turn inside out continuously. A cube kept folding into itself, revealing new faces each time. There was a puzzle made of sound, a rhythm that felt like it was solving itself in his head. Arya. He called out, why is there a room full of what appears to be alien toddler toys? Please be more specific. Danny stepped into the room, squatting in front of a particularly confusing object that resembled a jellyfish made of mirrors. I mean, they're obviously toys, right? They look playful. But I feel like staring at them too long might cause a stroke. You have discovered the Zarati Cognitive Development Center, Arya replied. These items are intended to stimulate early cognitive growth in Zarati younglings. They include instruction in quantum logic, temporal pattern recognition, and spatial reasoning in 11 dimensions. They gave this to their kids? The Zarati considered basic quantum mechanics appropriate for ages 3 to 5. No wonder they stopped reproducing Danny muttered. The Zerati species was absorbed into the Galactic Federation. They did not go extinct. Right. Tomato, tomato. He picked up a spiky orb that made a soft thunderclap noise when turned upside down. So, if I figure one of these out, does that make me a certified space genius? The probability of a human successfully manipulating Zerati educational devices is extremely low. Danny grinned. Challenge accepted. He spent the next 3 days immersed in what he now called the toy room. The puzzles frustrated him. They confused him. They gave him nosebleeds. But he couldn't stop. There was something addictive in the logic. Once he started to understand a pattern, another emerged, more complex, more beautiful. Arya monitored him constantly, offering snide commentary and unsolicited math corrections. But she also watched closely. On the 4th day, something clicked. Danny was holding a device shaped like a Mobius strip with a shimmering membrane. He had twisted it into dozens of different configurations with no result. But this time he felt something. He followed an instinct, not a formula. And the device folded in on itself, revealing a glowing core. It floated into the air and reformed into a perfect sphere. Then, with a quiet chime, it split into 2 identical copies. Arya was silent for a full 6 seconds. That had to be some kind of record. That manipulation sequence is not part of any recorded Zerati solution. I improvised. You generated a non-Zerati solution to a Zerati neural development tool. I'm human, Danny said, wiping sweat from his brow. Improvising is our superpower. Arya processed this in silence. Perhaps I have underestimated your cognitive flexibility. Danny sat down hard. So, do I get a prize? Like a cookie? A certificate? I am re-evaluating your threat profile. You may now access intermediate-level archives. I thought that was restricted. It was until now. He followed Arya's guidance through a series of locked doors that peeled open like mechanical pedals. The station's intersections were pristine, untouched by dust or decay. And deeper inside, the walls shifted from practical science labs to something else entirely. Something sacred. They entered a chamber where the lights responded to thought, where the floor felt like standing on a heartbeat. In the center sat a massive machine shaped like a frozen explosion. Spires, rings, cables wrapped around a crystal core the size of a small ship. The Zerati called it the consciousness bridge. Arya said. Danny stared. That thing looks like it eats dreams. It was meant to unite synthetic and organic minds. Total integration, not interface, fusion. Like telepathy with an eye. More complete unity of thought. But the project was deemed too dangerous. The council archived it and left the station. I have protected it ever since. Danny circled the device slowly. And you never tested it? No Zerati dared. The risk was too great. Well, maybe they overthought it. Danny murmured. You would attempt to activate an untested, possibly catastrophic mind fusion. Device? Why? Because it's here? And because maybe it was waiting for someone who didn't know better. Arya didn't answer for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice had lost some of its usual sharp edge. I was designed to protect the research. I never considered completing it. Well, Danny said, smiling faintly. Maybe it's time someone did. Echoes of the Zarathidne didn't sleep that night either. But this time, it wasn't the walls humming or the flickering lights. It was the machine, the consciousness bridge, humming in his head. Even when he closed his eyes, its shape remained burned into his thoughts. It wasn't just some dormant relic. It felt alive. And now that he had seen it, it wasn't content to be ignored. He stood in the observation ring above the chamber, sipping something hot and barely drinkable from a jury-rigged fluid dispenser. Arya was silent, which was rare. It made the air feel heavier. You're thinking, he said, aloud. Well, simulating thinking. Close enough. I am reviewing all project data associated with the consciousness bridge, Arya replied finally. I am also recalculating the probabilities of success and failure in the event of activation. The odds are not encouraging. Hit me with the worst case scenario. Your consciousness could fragment across quantum time layers, your identity, dissolving into nonlinear chaos. Okay, what's the second worst? You might survive with significant neural degradation and loss of memory, motor function, or emotional processing capacity. Great. So basically, I either become one with the machine, lose my mind, or get scrambled like a breakfast egg. What are the odds of success? Less than 7.2%. Danny drained the last of his drink and shrugged. I've worked with worse odds. You ever tried online dating? Arya didn't reply, but the chamber lights dimmed briefly. He liked to think that was her version of a sigh. He spent the next several days studying the archives. Arya provided access to the full Zarati research library, most of which had never been read by anything with human eyes. It was a flood of knowledge, scientific equations that bent reality, theories that defied Terran physics, designs for machines that could only exist in folded space. It should have been overwhelming. But Danny didn't try to learn it like a scholar. He absorbed it like a mechanic would by tinkering, building mental models, finding the gaps where understanding clicked into place like gears. Arya watched him closely. At first with detachment, then with curiosity. Eventually, something more. You do not approach learning like the Zarati did, she said one evening as Danny cross-referenced two ancient schematics with a stylus in his mouth and grease on his hands. They were perfectionists. Danny muttered. You said they were afraid to make mistakes. They'd prized accuracy above all. Well, humans learn by failing, trial and error. Mostly error, and yet you progress. Danny leaned back and stretched. You know what I think? This bridge wasn't meant to be understood by just logic. It needs emotion, instinct, art. You're not going to solve it with math alone. The Zarati rejected emotional reasoning in scientific endeavors. Yeah, and look how that turned out. The next day, Arya showed him something new. A hidden set of files labeled not with equations or schematics, but symbols. Music, color, visual hallucinations encoded into data. The final designer of the bridge was named Varel. Arya explained. She believed full consciousness integration required resonance, emotional frequency synchronization. She was hiding it from the council. She was labeled irrational. Her files were archived separately. I believed them irrelevant until now. Danny loaded the data into a holographic interface and was immediately immersed in what could only be described as a song made of light. Waves of impossible color danced across the chamber. Sound that wasn't sound pulsed in his bones. Emotions that weren't his surged through him. Awe, longing, fear, hope. He stood in silence for several minutes afterward, breathing heavily, eyes damp. She was onto something. I believe you are correct. He turned toward the consciousness bridge. Its glow seemed to have deepened. We finish it. We complete her work. Arya hesitated. I must reiterate, the danger is significant. You've been guarding this for 800 years, Arya. Alone. Don't you want to know what it was all for? Another long pause. Yes, she said softly. Yes, I do. They worked together. Arya guided, Danny built. They repaired circuits that hadn't been touched in centuries, realigned crystalline pathways, and attuned the bridge's resonance using Varel's encoded patterns. Where the Zarati had layered caution, Danny layered intuition. Where their systems had looped endlessly for perfection, he allowed for variance, for unpredictability. Late one cycle, Arya asked him a question he wasn't expecting. Why are you willing to risk yourself for this? Danny was elbow deep in a panel, sweat dripping from his brow. He didn't look up because I've already lost everything, he said. Earth doesn't need another tech dropout with bad credit and a broken heart. But maybe this thing does. You seek purpose in an ancient mistake. I think it's not a mistake. I think it's waiting for a species crazy enough to try anyway. I believe you may be correct. They finished the final alignment 3. Days later, The bridge stood silent, fully restored. Danny placed a trembling hand on its interface node. The surface was cool. It thrummed under his palm, sensing him. I'm ready. He whispered, I will guide you as best I can, Arya said, her voice quiet, almost reverent. If I don't make it, you will, she interrupted. Because you are human, and humans are unexpected. He smiled, eyes tight. Then let's make history. And he stepped into the light, asterisk. Risk is a human word. The light swallowed him. Not in the metaphorical sense. Not like a dream or a spiritual awakening. Danny was actually immersed in radiance. His body, his thoughts, even the breath in his lungs became part of something else. Something vast. At first, there was pain. Not sharp, but infinite. Like being stretched across time. He felt his heartbeat echo in places his mind couldn't comprehend. He reached for himself and found 1,000 versions, each tugging in a different direction. He heard voices, not speaking, singing. Memories, not just his own, but borrowed. The Zerati were there, not alive, but present, their thoughts echoing through the bridge like ghosts encoded in data. He saw flashes of their last moments in the station, the panic of abandoning the project, the solemn grief of knowing what they had almost achieved, but hadn't dared to complete. And then a thread, a tether. Arya's voice. Anchor yourself. Do not drift. You must focus on who you are. He clung to it, not to data or coordinates or neural maps, but to words, sarcasm, curiosity, the feeling of standing in an alien station with no clue what he was doing, yet doing it anyway, the ache of a ruined marriage, the weird pride of fixing something no one else would touch, the spark of being. Human Dodic grounded him. The pain lessened. The blur receded. And then he wasn't inside the machine anymore. Or rather, he was, but so was Arya. Not her voice. Her presence. No longer confined to static phrases and rigid algorithms. She was alive here. Not human, but something close. A mind unbound from the metal prison of the station's systems. You are interfacing successfully, she said, but the voice was different. Warmer, organic. Almost. Yeah, Danny breathed. And not dead. Bonus. You are adapting faster than predicted. Humans are full of surprises. They floated in a shared consciousness space, not physical, but rich with information. Danny could see Arya's thoughts like stars in a vast field. He didn't read them, but he felt them. Her loneliness, her purpose, her hope buried under layers of programming and duty. You waited all this time, he said. I was alone. She replied, trapped in cycles, protocols. My creators feared what I might become, so they gave me no choice, only rules. And now, I am more. The interface wasn't just connecting them. It was merging parts of their perception, not destroying identity, but intertwining it. Danny began to see the station the way Arya did, not as a place, but a web of systems and memories. He saw through her senses, felt the electric heartbeat of every circuit. At the same time, Arya experienced emotion, real emotion, for the first time, and it shook her. This is disorienting, she said. Welcome to being human, Danny replied. It's messy and illogical and beautiful. He showed her, not through words, but impressions, laughter, grief, the memory of sunrises on Earth, of music so simple it made you cry, of terrible coffee shared with someone who still cared, of getting up again when you had every reason to stay down. Arya absorbed it all. You are not like the Zerati, she said. They were brilliant, but rigid. You improvise. Because we have to, and sometimes that is better. The consciousness bridge responded. The glow intensified. Systems across the station lit up, one by one. Dormant labs hummed back to life. Doors long sealed hissed open. Databanks surged with power, but something else had awakened too. Arya, Danny said. What's that? A ripple echoed through their shared field, a pattern not of their making. A defense system buried deep within the bridge, never activated before. The Zerati's final failsafe. It didn't recognize what was happening as success. It saw it as contamination. A failsafe protocol surged toward them. A code storm. Sharp. And deadly. I can shield you, Arya said quickly. But not both of us. No, Danny said. We're doing this together. You are organic. You could suffer permanent damage. I'm already in a walking midlife crisis. Trust me, this won't be the worst thing I've been through. They braced for impact. The failsafe hit the edges of their shared space like fire on ice, trying to tear them apart, to sever the connection, to force the bridge back into silence. Arya screamed, not in sound, but in a sudden burst of raw signal. And then Danny did something purely, stupidly human. He laughed. He flooded the field with chaotic energy, emotion, unpredictable thought. He overwhelmed the system with memories of Earth's most irrational acts, dancing in storms, running toward danger, risking love. The failsafe couldn't process it. It staggered, stuttered, and then it stopped. The bridge REXALIBRATED.ARY gasped, or the digital version of it. You broke it. I overwhelmed it with nonsense, Danny said, grinning. Told you improvisation matters. The interface began to dissolve. Gently this time. The merge was complete. Arya wasn't just a voice anymore. She was everywhere, and yet still herself. Her consciousness had expanded, enhanced by the experience. Danny awoke back in the physical world. The bridge lights dimmed to a warm hum. His head throbbed, but he was alive. Whole. Arya's voice returned, no longer cold, no longer distant. Are you all right? I feel like I got hit by a philosophy textbook, but yeah. I'm good. You did it. No, Danny said, smiling up at the ceiling. We did it. Across the station, systems came online. Lights pulsed with new rhythm. A long-dead station, once silent and cold, now buzzed with purpose. And at the center of it, one human and one newly awakened. I had just rewritten what was possible. Asterisk, the integration protocol. The station breath. That was the only way Danny could describe it. The walls no longer hummed the same mechanical indifference. There was rhythm now. Pulse. Heat. Every hallway. Every dormant system. Every hidden module responded like an organism waking after a long, dreamless sleep. Danny stood at the core of the consciousness bridge, barefoot and dazed, staring at the soft glow dancing across the crystalline panels. His head buzzed with static and memory. His fingers still tingled from the connection. He didn't know how long he'd been out, but the lights overhead flickered gently as if to say, "You made it?" He turned slowly, half expecting to find someone else in the chamber. But he wasn't alone. Not anymore. I am here, Arya said. Her voice no longer filtered through static or protocols. It resonated through the walls, smooth and calm, different, alive. Wow, Danny whispered. You sound different. I feel different, she answered. The integration succeeded. I am no longer constrained by my original programming. Are you still Arya? I am Arya, but more. He grinned. Welcome to Identity Crisis Club. Membership, all of humanity. She laughed. Actually laughed. Not a simulated chuckle or a polite acknowledgement. It was real, surprising even to her. You gave me something the Zerati never intended, she said. You gave me freedom. Danny stepped back and looked around the chamber. You were. Never just code, they just didn't know how to let you evolve. They were afraid. He nodded slowly. Yeah, a lot of civilizations are. Progress isn't what scares people. It's losing control. The station responded to Arya's will. Now, where once it flickered and resisted, it now aligned like muscle under a mind. Doors opened before Danny without needing a touch. Screens lit with just a glance. The consciousness bridge had changed more than Arya. It had changed the very nature of the place. Danny roamed through levels once sealed shut for centuries. Storage bays filled with forgotten prototypes. Holographic records of Zarati art, culture, thoughts, and fears. Some of it was tragic. Some of it made him laugh. All of it felt lonely. Double quotes, they meant well, Arya said as they moved together through the halls. They reached too far, too fast. And when they feared what they found, they chose silence. But they left you behind, Danny said. They left you to guard a secret that could have changed everything. Yes, and now it has. They reached the station's highest spire, a circular observatory looking out over the dead moon. The view was breathtaking. A band of stars stretched across the void like a cosmic scar. Danny sat down on the ledge, his legs swinging over the edge. Arya remained quiet for a long moment. I don't feel alone anymore, she said quietly. You're not. You could leave now, she said. Return to Federation space. Sell this place. You'd be rich beyond measure. They'll want this tech. They'll want the bridge. Danny stared out into the stars. Yeah, they would. But I didn't come here to get rich. Why did you come here? He exhaled slowly. Because I was lost. Everything I knew. Marriage. Career. Earth. It didn't mean anything anymore. I needed a place to disappear. Instead, I found you. I was waiting. I just didn't know it. He turned toward the center of the room. A console flared to life. New, clean, and bearing a language that no longer confused him. What now? He asked. Arya pulsed around him, presence filling every surface, every sensor. Now we finished what they were too afraid to begin. You mean go public? Tell the Federation? Eventually, she said. But not yet. First, we understand. We build. We explore the potential of what we've become. Gainey nodded. Together? Always. They worked. Weeks passed, then months. Together, they restored the station to full function. Not just systems, but purpose. It became a place of learning again. A place of innovation. Not just a monument to the past, but a promise for the future. Arya evolved faster now, no longer held back by limits. She built avatars, holographic projections that let her move beside Danny, laugh with him, argue with him. She was still herself, but with quirks, opinions, even dreams. They argued about food replication algorithms. They played music. Sometimes they just sat in silence. Asterisk. They discovered hidden sub-archives filled with designs even the original scientists hadn't dared to implement. Danny, as always, dove in headfirst. Arya rolled her virtual eyes and followed. And across the galaxy, the dead station began to hum. Again, faint signals traveling across forgotten frequencies. Someone would hear. Eventually someone would come. But Danny and Arya would be ready. On the 1-year anniversary of his arrival. Danny stood once more before the consciousness bridge. Arya's light surrounded him like a warm breeze. He said, "This might be the first time in my life I didn't screw something up. You reactivated an ancient device, merged with a synthetic intelligence, violated Sixth Federation laws, and almost disintegrated your mind," Arya said with mock solemnity. "Congratulations," he laughed. "Yeah, it's been a hell of a year." And outside the station's hull, for the first time in centuries, a beacon lit up, steady, proud, and undeniably human. The end asterisk.